Hello, it's Monday. I'm Mover. We're back with Mondays with Mover because Gonky has a personal program and is trying to get back to Florida. So today I've got a special guest, Jerry Vink, F-105 pilot, and not just F-105. He's flown like everything. So we're going to talk to him. Jerry, welcome aboard. It's great to have you.
Well, thank you. Don't know why you young studs want to talk to a 79-year-old fart that once flew with single seat fighters, but I appreciate the invite.
Because of everything you just said. That was awesome. That's exactly why. But getting started, we like to go chronologically because, we try to inspire the next generation. But how'd you get in aviation? Did you have like a upbringing? Did anybody in your family fly, or what got the bug for you?
No, I was so far away from flying and aviation that I grew up on a farm, and I guess I always had an interest in airplanes back then, but being a dirt poor farmer and that just never imagined I would ever pilot an airplane. I used to hear the B-36s come over from Ellsworth flying over the farm, and I'd run outside to see if I could see them. And once in a great while, there'd be a little airplane that would fly within sight of the farm, and I'd stop whatever I was doing just to see it. Back then, every airplane was a Piper Cub. I didn't know the difference. So that's where I grew up. And but then at 18, of course, I had to register for the draft, and that was the real draft, that was before the lottery or any of that stuff. And so I guess between my junior and senior year of college, in fact, that was, so far from anything like that. I was the first male on my dad's side of the family that graduated from college. That's what a small world I lived in.
Yeah. And, what'd you go for? What was your area of study?
I had a double major in math and business.
Oh, okay.
I started out with interest in computers and kind of worked myself into. I had a very smart counselor when I first started. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. He said, start taking business courses. Just take business courses, and it's never going to hurt you. So I did. And then when I finally decided I wanted a math major, I thought, well, business minor that doesn't make sense. So I started looking at what else I wanted to minor in. And I had so many business credits, I thought, well, shoot, I'll just get a major in both.
Yeah.
Worked out good.
Yeah.
But between the junior and senior year, I knew I was going to have to do something with regard to the military because I was on a student deferment. So I went to the Sioux Falls, South Dakota Guard Unit, talked to some old sergeant there, and awesome. Air Guard Unit said, hey, I want to join up. And he said, he gave me a whole ration of crap about it was too far away and all kinds of crap, And finally he says, all right, I'll sign you up, but I think you're making a big mistake. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, you're getting an education, right? Why don't you put it to use? And I said, what are you talking about? He said, join the officer corps. I said, okay, well, how do I do that? He said, go downtown and see the recruiter. So I did. And he said, well, anything he could do, he said, you'll have to go see the recruiter where you're going to school in Minnesota. So after school started, I went to see the recruiter and said, hey, I want to join the officer corps. And he says, love to sign you up, but it's closed.
Oh.
And I said, closed? He said, yeah. And I said, why? He says, I don't know. He says, closed. He said, it'll probably open again. So I check back in a couple of weeks or so. So I did. And he says, still closed. I said, well, it's going to open up, right? He said, yeah. And I said, don't we have to take tests and written tests and stuff like that? And he said, yeah. And I says, well, I got about 8 guys in my math classes that'd like to do the same thing I'm doing. Can't you just organize and have those tests? We can take the tests and be ready when it does open up.
Yeah, prepare.
And he said, I don't know. I said, well, find out. So he called me up a little later and says, hey, I got it set up. You guys can all come in some Saturday and take the test. I think 4 of us showed up and took the tests. And he called me up one day afterwards and says, "How'd you like to be a pilot or a navigator?"
Yeah.
I said, "I don't know why."
So you didn't think of that at that point,
No,
right?
I didn't even think about it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he said, I said, "Well, why?" And he says, "Well, they just opened it up for pilots and navigators only, and you scored real high in those areas." So
Wow.
I said, "Okay, what's next?" He said, "The physical." And I never figured I'd pass a physical for a pilot because both my parents wore glasses. My brother started wearing glasses at 7 years old, so I never dreamt I'd pass it.
Right.
I passed the physical and called me up and he said, "Okay, you've been accepted into the Air Force pilot training and all so forth." But then I got my draft physical at the same time, or my draft notice.
Uh-oh.
So I took it to the recruiter and said, "Hey, fix this. I'm not going to get drafted."
Right. I want to be a pilot now.
Yeah, he said. So he wrote a letter to the draft board, and they sent the physical notice back. And so I took that to the recruiter and said, "Hey, you got to fix this." And finally he called me in. He said they responded, said, "You're going to have to take your draft physical. There's nothing I can do."
Oh.
And he says, "The only thing we can do is move everything up to as close to your graduation as we can." So he moved class dates up, counted travel time. So there was 20 days. I was going to have 20 days from my graduation until I could get sworn in. And he said, "We're just going to have to keep our fingers crossed."
Oh, wow.
Well, my parents came up for my graduation. I loaded my junk in their car and said, "Go home. Don't answer any phone calls. Don't answer any mail. You don't know me. You don't know where I am." And I literally hid and drank beer for 20 days.
That's awesome.
Until I showed up in Minneapolis with my hand in the air and got sworn in.
Wow.
Interesting times back then.
Yeah. What year is what? This is like early 60s?
It was 66.
Okay. Wow.
Mid 60s.
Yeah. So you went to OTS after that?
Like I went to OTS and then straight from there to Vance pilot training.
Did they do any? So you'd never flown before. Was your first flight in a tweet?
No, they had the T-41s.
Okay. For the kids at home, what is the T-41 and what did that entail?
T-41 is nothing but a little more power in a Cessna 172. So we got 30 hours in a little Cessna 172.
Were you?
I was really fortunate. I got the highest score that had ever been given in the T-41s when I graduated from the T-41.
So you weren't worried, like when you first started, like, "Hey, I've never done this before. This could be." You just were like, "Let's go do it."
Well, I got thinking about that later. I thought, growing up on a farm, operating equipment, operating every farmer around, different tractors, different everything.
Yeah.
An airplane was just another piece of equipment I needed to learn to operate.
Yeah.
And I think that really helped me.
Yeah. No. So did everyone pass? Was it a washout rate or was it pretty much just get you to pilot training?
What do you mean?
Did you have a high attrition rate at that early in the program?
No,
like your classmates?
Not real high that early. We had a couple foreign students in there that didn't, they got held back and all kinds of stuff. But we really didn't have a very high washout rate until we got T-38s.
Oh, okay.
Man, one day I found myself at my instructor's table and I was the only one at the table.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, before that, I mean, so what was it like getting in the tweet for the first time? The tweet T-37, right? That's what they were flying back then. Yeah. So
T-37.
What'd you think hopping in that thing for the first time?
I thought that thing was fun. I thought that was that thing was so maneuverable. You could fly up your own butt with it. I love that thing.
Yeah.
And it didn't take a lot of altitude or airspace to do it.
Did you have any issues with like motion sickness or anything doing
No,
aerobatics for the first time?
no,
Not
not at
just
all.
straight
I
natural.
mean,
That's awesome.
we had guys, you close the canopy. I took them out for cockpit checks and stuff like that, working with them. They close the canopy and then they panic, and
Yeah.
I never had any of that. Never had any motion sickness. Never had any claustrophobic things.
Yeah. Awesome. And then
So
to the T-38 where you light the afterburner for the first time, how'd you
yeah,
like that?
that dollar ride in the T-38. I felt like I was sitting on the pointy end of a pencil, just going like hell. That was fun.
Did they
T-38 was a fun airplane.
did they do the boom and zoom ride back then?
What was the boom and zoom?
The mock run. They got rid of it by the time I went
we did
through.
a mock run.
Yeah.
Did you? You flew T-38, right?
I did. Yeah, T-38C in pilot training.
Do you ever? I used to like to push the envelope a little bit.
Go on.
And the T-38, you remember the full aft stick stall in the T-38, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, they bragged about all the aileron control you have, even in full stall. So I decided I could do a full aft stick stall aileron roll, and I did it.
Uh-oh.
Took awesome. 20,000 feet to do it, but I did it.
Oh wow. Yeah. Were you solo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I told my instructor I had something I wanted to show him, and I showed him, and he said, "You do that again, you're out of here." He was not happy.
For legal reasons, this is a joke. I wasn't. Yeah, I was just kidding. That's funny. I mean, so having not flown, did you get to solo in the T-41, or was there a solo?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you soloed in the T-41
because that's
little cross country at the end and stuff like that. But
yeah, I mean, that's what brought us together, right? We talked about, going solo and being alone and unafraid. What was the transition soloing the jet, the T-41, the T-37, and the T-38? Did you find that, going solo was just, I mean, what did it feel like as a young kid that just out of college from the farm?
I don't know. I didn't really, I loved it. I didn't get him out of there. I liked it,
That's awesome.
I guess I used to, and also I used to challenge. I always challenge everything. I challenge my instructors. I'd try to match landings with them and stuff like that, and that was always fun.
Was there anything in pilot training that you kind of struggled with, or it took a little bit longer than other stuff, or was it all pretty much just par for the course?
No, I didn't feel like I struggled at all.
That's awesome. Yeah. You said people washed out in the T-38 side. I mean,
well, we had a few accidents. There were a few things that happened. A few accidents. I had an instructor and student out at night. I don't know what they were doing. They augured in, and had a solo student in the T-38 out. They were doing in trail formation, and I can't remember what the deal was. But anyhow, the student ended up going in the weather, and the student punched out and ended up landing on a fence post in western Oklahoma someplace and was dead. And,
jeez.
They had an incident on base, which was kind of a crazy incident. They had it was a night out and back, where you did a little out and back, came back and did a 3 touch and goes or whatever, and then full stopped. And I think one of the early airplanes, second airplane, he was coming in on his first landing and got in the jet wash of the airplane ahead of him and touched down, or he decided to go around, and then he touched down. And since he touched down, he decided to stay on the ground, and he ended up taking the barrier at the end. He cold cocked everything, battery off everything, and took the barrier. Nobody saw him go in the barrier.
Oh wow!
And he's out there. Airplanes are taking off over top of him, and there was a graduation so there was a student with his parents and stuff out at the end of the runway at Vance watching the airplanes fly, and he saw it go in the barrier. He crawls over the fence, runs all the way out to the airplane, and asked the guy, he said, "You all right?" He said, "I'm fine. Just get somebody out here to get me." So he runs back, climbs over the fence. In the meantime, he had shot off a couple of flares at the end of the runway. Yeah.
Holy
guys are taking off, says, "Hey, they're shooting at us out here." So they called the SOF and the squadron commander and stuff, and he's, it's just some damn graduating students are shooting off flares out there. So they send out the air police, and the air police arrive on the inside of the perimeter road. And just as the student jumps in his car that had climbed over the fence, they head on base to so the police didn't even see the airplane. They just saw that car, so they went to chase that car back to the gate. I just thought, it was crazy. It was crazy. So they finally did get him out of the barrier and all that, but it caused quite a ruckus, and we lost several people, because of all that stuff that was going on.
Wow, this is just your class. The attrition's just, I can't imagine having mishaps in the middle of class.
It wasn't all our class. It was the one accident. The student instructor was not our class. That was another one, but the one
that all happened while it all happened while you were a student.
Yeah, it all happened while we were all there.
I can't imagine that. The mishap rates, were they pretty high back then? Was it just acceptable risk?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Every now and then there'd be something, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
Been a long time ago,
Yeah, no, different world back then. So you got your assignment night. How did the drop night work for you guys as far as your follow on and kind of what you were going to do?
Well, my goal throughout pilot training was an F-100. That was my goal. And I realized that your class standing was really the only thing you could control in your future in the Air Force.
Yeah.
And so I ended up graduating top of the class. And when the block of airplanes came down, there were 3 F-105s in the block for all 8 bases, which surprised me.
Wow.
And so I immediately decided I wanted a 105.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And signed up for a 105. In fact, I was pumped up, ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your winging like? Did you have your family come up and do the wings, put your wings on your chest, or?
Yeah. They had a graduation. My dad and my brother came up, I think, but
yeah. That had to be a big moment considering farm boy to do that. So
made the local paper for sure.
Did it? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Did they do back in the day the breaking of the wings in half, where you break them in half, give them to somebody, and they only should be reunited if something ever happens to you? Was that a thing?
I don't remember that.
That might be a tradition that started later. But so from Vance, where'd you go? Was lift a thing back then, or IFF, or did you just go straight to the 105?
I went straight to the 105.
Wow, tell me about flying that thing.
Had some survival training and stuff, but straight to the 105.
Yeah. What was that jet like? And
I didn't know it at the time, but normally for non-fighter types, they had a longer course than the 105. Yeah. But I was in the class that was a shorter class for the fighter types. So okay. I guess they needed more cannon fodder.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. Here you go.
Yeah, go for it. The 105 was big. That's the first time you sit in the 105 and look over that nose compared to the T-38. It's a big airplane.
Yeah. What was your first flight like in that thing? Because this is, it's different flying actual let's go kill something jet than it is flying a trainer.
Well, the first 2 rides in the 105 were in the back seat of an F model. So you couldn't land from the back seat. There's no forward viz, so you couldn't see, but you got to feel the airplane and fly the instruments. You got to fly the approach and missed approach, stuff like that. But the first time in the D model was strap it in, and the instructor was your chase, and away you went.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. I mean, did you just look around and go, "This is me. I'm it"?
I don't know. I mean, it didn't seem that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is your first time too. I mean, pointing your nose at the ground, right? You're starting to drop bombs. Everything was manual bombing, cranking mills.
Manual bombing, set the mills, and
oh my God,
dive angle and airspeed and
kids these days will never know. Yeah, I barely know. I mean, that was a contingency to crank mills. We didn't hardly ever manual bomb, but was that an adjustment for you? Or was it just like everything else? You're just like, yep, let's go do this.
You just learn how to, you just go do it and learn how to do it. And,
were you, so when you're in training in the 105, were you now looking towards, hey, I need to get this right because I'm about to deploy? Were they starting to talk about using you in combat at this point? Was that kind
of yeah, you were going to combat for sure. I mean, it wasn't really talked about, but yeah, I mean, the training was for real. I mean, all the instructors had already had a tour over there, and so they were giving into the real stuff.
Yeah. Was it something?
Sorry, we had a gunnery range in Kansas. This was at Wichita. McConnell had a gunnery range in Kansas where we did, the low level stuff. We did the dive bombs, the skip bombing, the strafing, and all of that stuff, rockets and all of that. And also we did the nuclear stuff. That was another thing with the 105. You had to learn all the nuclear stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a lot to learn. I mean, that's you go out. They had a F-105 set up with the Doppler and radar and all the weapon systems in the right seat of a T-39. So we got 5 flights in the T-39 to learn the low-level nuclear stuff.
Oh, okay. Wow. And then, so they're using companion trainers. That's interesting. Okay.
And then you went out by yourself with a chase plane, and you're low level, heads down, on autopilot on the whole way till you pick up your IP and do your pop up, auto toss maneuvers. And
wow. What was the autopilot? Was it just a attitude or altitude hold? It
had Mach hold, airspeed hold, altitude hold.
Wow.
You didn't, like when you changed altitude or something like that, you had to bump the throttle, and you couldn't. It didn't have auto throttles, of course.
Yeah.
But,
wow. That's
but it
cool.
was pretty sosophisticated for back in.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Tubes and they had the toss bomb computer in the airplane. You used to have to go up there and look at. They had a tray with all these cartridges in it, and you matched the cartridge with the weapon you were carrying, and you plugged that into the computer, so it knew all the ballistics and it knew the safe zones and all that kind of stuff for the delivery.
Wow. So when you're doing these bombing, I mean, did you have the Z diagrams and like, how are you planning your delivery? Were you doing math in the cockpit, or did you have everything like in flight guides, lineup cards and stuff? And you're just
you briefed it all. I mean, before 4 missions, you always had the big wing brief.
Yeah.
And for threats and all the stuff and weather and all the crap. And then you went back to the squadron and had your individual 4-ship briefs. And you briefed the target, you briefed how you're going to approach it, you briefed how you're going to roll in, you briefed how you're going to roll off and how you're going to rejoin and all the stuff.
So you graduated from, I guess they call it the B course back then, the F-105 B course. And then where'd you go from there? Did you go to your operational squadron, or did you go straight overseas?
I went straight overseas, went straight to Talk Lake. Had stopped by, had jungle school on the way in the Philippines, and then to.
What was jungle school?
Huh?
What was jungle school? Was it just another survival?
Survival training.
Specific to the region?
Yeah, well, it was the survival school for that region. Yeah,
Yeah.
learn about all the snakes and learn about all the stuff.
Now
Go sit in the jungle.
being a farm boy, was it? I mean, just different. You're like, oh, I'm used to being outdoors and doing all this stuff. I mean,
Well, that was one of the things that the jungle school did for me. It took away the fear of the jungle. I mean, it was just another woods.
Yeah.
It had different critters and it had different vegetation stuff, but it was just another woods. You just had to learn about. So,
Yeah. So
one of the things that they said, if you smell pig, you don't have to worry about snakes. And then that jungle smelled like a hog yard with all the wild pigs, so I didn't worry about snakes.
see, I wouldn't have known that. That's
the only thing was we were in the jungle, camping out in the jungle, and the pigs came through one night and tore the crap out of everything. We had a poncho set up collecting water, and we had all kinds of stuff set up. And I learned why we built our bunks above ground, because when them pigs came through, they tore everything up.
Wow. So you went from there. Where'd you go in country? What was your first?
I was Taklay in Thailand.
Okay.
So we were flying out of Thailand into North Vietnam and Laos.
And then that's crazy to me, is your first stop out of training is, did you join a deployed squadron where you're like, hey, I'm assigned to this squadron and they're already here? Is that how it worked? Or
well, yeah, they were already there. We were assigned. Well, we got our orders at McConnell. We knew I knew I was going to the 354th Attack Fighter Squadron at Taklay. That's where I went.
Wow. And so you show up
after jungle school. It was kind of funny, being a farm boy. When I left to go overseas, I'm in the back of a chartered DC-8. I can't remember who the outfit was, and I'm looking out the window and thinking, "Holy shit, I'm going to war." Yeah. It finally started to really sink in, and then I guess the other one was after jungle school. I got to Bangkok, and they had a officers club, which is a hotel there in Bangkok, and I was too late to catch the Hercules going to Taklay, so I had to wait till the next day. I went down to have a hamburger down at the restaurant. There was some guy sitting there in a flight suit, and obviously, because of all the Velcro and stuff, I could tell he was a 105 pilot. And I went and sat down, asked if I could join him, and he says, "Yeah," he said, "I just was shot down today in Laos. They picked me up and brought me into Bangkok, and I'll be jumping on the Herc going back to Karat tomorrow." So now it's really getting real.
Yeah. I mean, you're a 20-something-year-old kid that's
23 years old.
Yeah, you're at, what was the at the time, what was the sentiment about Vietnam? Was it still kind of publicly, where were they at geopolitically at that point?
Were you talking about the guys over there?
Yeah, I mean,
well, I think all the guys over there were praying for one strafing pass at Berkeley.
I mean, so
that's how politically we were.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, that makes sense. So you show up at your squadron, and I mean, did you get the sit down like, hey, this is real? Obviously you've just met somebody that's jumped out. Do you meet the squadron commander, the DO, that's kind of like, hey, here's how you stay alive here?
Hey, there was a guy from the squadron that met me when I got off the Herc the next day. He took me over to the squadron, took me over to the hooch where I was before. I had to stay in a hooch at first.
Yeah.
And until that trailer opened up where I got a trailer, but and then took me over to officers club, showed me where that was, and showed me where the wing headquarters were, told me I had to check in there the next day. And I guess that was my first real rude awakening, was when I checked in the wing headquarters. You sign in and get all your intelligence so you can come in, and ID or whatever. Hand me this thick piece of 8.5 by 11 typewritten book. Read this. I I guess I needed to take a test too, probably. I don't remember. But anyhow, I said, what the hell is this? And they said, the rules of war. And I said, rules?
Yeah.
I thought this was war. What are we doing?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Wow. So then you go to your first sortie. Are you getting chased as like a local area orientation, or is you?
Yeah, we did get one local area orientation. They took us out, flew us around Thailand to show us where the bases were, where the recovery bases were, if necessary, especially the Ubon and Udorn, which were close to the border of Laos. So, because you got battle damage or had mechanical problems, this was probably where you're going to end up recovering.
What was
that was the closest?
What was the flame out plan in that jet? Like, what were you? Did it have any kind of glide ratio at all, or just
high key over the runway at 15,000 feet is where it was.
AGL, so 15,000 above
15,000 feet, and then one.
God, that's crazy. That's wow. Okay.
Well, that thing was.
Yeah.
We call it the world's fastest tricycle. It was. It was taken off at 52,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Wow. And hot. We usually rolled about 7,000 feet or more. Wow. The nose wheel liftoff speed was usually about 197, 198 knots, and you flew 10 knots later.
The tires held up to this? Jeez.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And the airplane, until you got to 300 knots, it really wasn't flying. And once you got to 300 knots, and by the time the end of the runway, just beyond about 300 knots, then it really started feeling like an airplane.
So if you lost an engine low altitude, you're just jumping out. Like there's no zoom to climb to get any kind of, you're just done.
Yeah, and you're punching.
Was the seat good? Was it a decent seat?
Yeah, it was a good seat. It had 0-0 capability. If you were below 50 knots, you had to reach over and pop the canopy first. Otherwise, you hit the canopy on the way.
Ooh, ouch.
But when I rebuilt a 105 cockpit at the museum out here, and I tore the seat all out of it, and I rebuilt the whole seat and everything. After rebuilding the seat, if I'd have known how mechanical and how
things that are better left unsaid.
Yeah, better left unsaid. I'm glad I didn't know it back then.
Yeah. So after your local area, so you get the one LAO ride, your first ride combat. What were your combat missions like?
Well, my first one, yeah, it was quite a ride. I was number 2. And the lead was a guy with about 198 missions, as I recall.
Wow.
98, not 190. I had 98 missions, as I recall.
Wow.
And he looked like a real level-headed guy, and really liked him. The boy got an airplane. It was a different story, man. He was something else. I can't remember what the hell we did with the bombs. I don't even remember. I think we must have dropped them in Nagia Pass, or one of the passes on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, where it goes between Laos and Vietnam, I think. But then he begged for more. He begged to go for some targets of opportunity, and we went off. And the weather was horseshit down along the coast, and we were descending through the weather, and I'm just hanging on for dear life. And all of a sudden we break out probably under 500 feet over the water. And next thing I know, we're coming downtown upriver at Dong Hoi, and he's yelling, "Sampans, shoot him up, shoot him up." Shit, wow. I don't remember if I pulled the trigger. I was so damn low, I was afraid to even push the nose over. And all I could think about is, you dumb shit, there's hills ahead of us, he's going to kill me. Yeah. Got on a tanker, got home, so I was happy.
Wow. That, so it was mostly low level ingress, pop attack, bombing kind of stuff?
And depends on the area. High threat areas, real high threat areas, flew the pod formation, which none of the old guys liked, but because they liked the low level pop up stuff. But with SAM threats and stuff, they had pod formation jamming pods.
Oh, okay.
We carried jamming pods, and it was 16 airplanes. So you had the strike force lead. 2 was 500 down and 1,000 out. 3 was 1,000 out, 500 up. 4 was 1,000 out, 500 up. And then you had the next 4 ship was the same. And a mile behind you had another 8 airplanes just like that. And when you got to the target, the strike force commander would roll in, 2 would roll under, go, and 3 and 4 and everybody rolled in at the same time. So you had 80 airplanes down the chute. And when those passed by, the next 8 were ready to go. You had 16 airplanes down the chute and get the hell out of there.
Good Lord. Was it ever like, hey, I mean, I can't imagine just keeping sight of your flight lead this whole time. Like, to me, your knuckles are white just because you're just trying to stay in position and maintain visual.
Yeah, well, yeah, it depends on the weather is that way. You're white knuckled in the weather, but things that were really scary is when you were in the weather and you heard that SAM radar chatter in your headset just a bit, and that scared you. The old hairs in the back of your head would stand on end on those. But
did you ever have to threat react against the SAM, like an active launch or anything?
Actually, never did. Never did.
What about AAA? Was that a threat?
Oh, AAA was bad. That's what got most of the airplanes.
Really? I mean, was it just like, they talk about flak so thick you could walk on it. Was it? I mean,
well, my 4th mission, I decided that there's no way I was going to survive my tour.
Really?
Yeah, we had everything was nice and quiet. There were 4 ship, lead rolled in, and all hell broke loose. I mean, they were just, looked like fire hoses down there. And
wow.
When I rolled in, the golf balls were going by the canopy. And just as I released, I took a hit and
wow.
Ended up airplane was vibrating pretty bad. I was afraid I was going to have to punch out. So I was jinking, and I don't know how fast I was going. I was going like hell. And see, the 105 could go 810 indicated.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So I light the burner and go. And as soon as it was vibrating, I was zooming for altitude because I was afraid I was going to have to punch out. And then once I got slowed down and out of the threat area, it started to smooth out. And I thought, well, she's still flying. We'll keep flying. And they checked me over. I had a hole in my left wing. I had a hole in the fin on my left external fuel tank, and I had a hole in my slab, all on the left side. But so I was my 4th mission.
4th mission. Now, were these mostly day or night or both?
They were day. We flew day. Was that
more dangerous?
Well, you don't see it so much in the day. Nighttime, you see it though. You see all the fire, but
and they see you. And that's
there were times you'd come back and say, "Wow, geez, they didn't shoot at us today," and then you go check your film and blister camera in the back. You'd see him lobbing behind you.
Yeah. Was there any appreciable air threat at this time as well? Like, were you worried about any kind of?
Well, they had the MiGs up there, but we never really. They didn't come down to mess with us, and we didn't go up to mess with them. We could outrun them. I mean, we could easily outrun them.
Yeah.
And the MiGs that were shot down by 105s were pretty much just they were in the wrong place at the wrong time.
MiG shot down by 105s.
Yeah.
Wow. That is wow. Could that thing turn? Was it? I mean,
it was not a turn. It was not a turning machine. It was. It was not a dogfighter.
Yeah, would it have to be like an unaware MiG to get a kill on it, or like how
Well,
are
I
you?
mean, there was one of them, and there's pictures of it. You've seen it where there's
Yeah,
Vink just kind of pulls right in front of him, and he blasts them
yeah.
with the 20 millimeter.
The Syrian lead turn. We like those when they're right in front of you. So, how many
Yeah,
missions?
speaking of trying to press the the envelope in 105 in training, you know, in their ACM training, they used to teach the high G roll underneath. I don't know if that's nothing but a snap roll is what it is. You know, you
Oh,
got somebody getting lead on you and do a snap roll and make them overshoot.
right.
And so I did it one time and worked great. The guy overshot, but now all of a sudden I'm out of airspeed. I'm out of everything. Stirring a stick in a bucket of crap. You know.
Yeah.
So I came up with the idea. Well, hell, the speed brakes are really effective on the 105. Those four big pedals in the back. I thought I'll light the afterburner, pop the boards, and snap roll it all at the same time. And when he goes by, all I got to do is suck the boards in, and I'm right on his head.
Hit the brakes, he'll fly right by.
And actually, it worked pretty good. I did it, and it worked pretty good the first time.
Awesome.
Second time, I spun out. The airplane spun out on me. So I didn't do it anymore after that.
You like to push the envelope, as we learned in the T-38 as well. So that's good.
Yeah.
You know your airplane's limitations.
Yeah.
So
I
you
got kind of a funny story about MiG pilot.
go on.
You know, we used to speculate and joke about it that the Russians were flying MiGs over there, North Vietnam. Well, in the late 80s, when Gorbachev was loosening things up on the Soviet Union, there was a bilateral agreement signed between the Soviet Union and the United States for a Western air cargo route out of Moscow, and then an Far Eastern air route out of Magadan into Anchorage. And Aeroflot came to Anchorage looking for ground handlers, and they kind of liked us. We were just, they didn't like all the bureaucracy of the bigger airlines and all that crap. They kind of liked us. And one of the things I think had sold them on us is we were in the hangar one day, and the Russians are all joking, they're pointing fingers and laughing at this old dirty couch that the mechanics would eat lunch on. It was oily and all dirty. And one of them said something to the interpreter, and the interpreter says, "They want me to explain to you, they're not laughing at you. They're laughing because just like Russia."
Yeah.
But anyhow, long story short, they invited me over to Soviet Union, and I went over to Magadan.
Oh wow.
And they put me in the TU-154 simulator, which was not a very good simulator, but put me in that. Then I flew in the IL-76, and then they kept talking to me about a cargo run, or they kept talking to me about flying the AN-12. I don't know if you know, the AN-12 is like their version of the Herc.
Yeah, yeah.
So I figured I'd be just going out on a cargo run one day, and anyhow, the day came, and it was the regional chief pilot, the AN-12 chief pilot, and the whole AN-12 crew and me walked out to an empty airplane. They put me in the left seat.
Oh.
And they gave me a workout.
Wow.
I mean, I had engine out, missed approach, engine out approaches, 2 engine work. They really worked me over.
Wow.
And after when I was about to leave, we had a meeting up at Aeroflot headquarters, and the regional chief pilot had kept asking me about if I had any visa photos. He wanted me to give him an extra visa photo, and I wasn't sure why. But I found out that after the meeting, they had a little ceremony, and they presented me with a Soviet Union license.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I still got it.
Ha! That's awesome.
And anyhow, after the meeting was over, they had cognac and vodka and caviar and all that kind of stuff set up in the back of the room. And I go I walk back there, and here's this old Russian standing there, and he's got a big old coat on. He's got a wings and a bunch of medals and stuff on his chest. And I walk up and I said, "Military?" He says, "Yeah, me MiG-21 pilot." I says, "Oh," I says, "Me F-105 pilot." Oh. And I said, "You know, Russian MiG-21 pilots much better pilots than North Vietnamese pilots." He had a little pause, and he kind of studied his drink for a bit. And he says, "I think better to meet here."
They're the same.
He didn't deny it.
That is awesome. Well, so how many sorties did you end up doing in country?
I had 139.
Wow. And it's all pretty much, I mean, did you get into like a battle rhythm after a while doing kind of the same thing, or was it every time was different?
Well, yeah, it depended. I mean, some of it was pretty routine, bombing trees in the Ho Chi Minh Trail and looking for trucks and that kind of crap. That got real routine. And once in a while, you'd get something different would come up.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. So after your 100 missions, what was next? Like, what did you do after? I mean,
Well,
I decided,
I put in my papers to get out.
When you got back to the States?
I actually put my papers in when I was still there.
No kidding. What drove that decision, and how'd that work out?
I just didn't like the way the war was being run. I didn't like I had too many guys I knew that were getting killed for what? If they would have turned us loose, every one of us would have been chomping at the bit and ready to go. But I didn't like the way it was.
So, like the ROE, just the fact that it was,
and there was rumors that Vietnam will be winding down, and probably we'll have so many pilots. So probably 5 years in the cockpit, 5 years behind the desk, and all that kind of stuff. I said, not me. I'm too much of an old farm boy to have somebody control my life like that.
Yeah, no, you wanted your freedom.
So I got assigned. I wouldn't sign up for another commitment. So I sent me to T-29s, which is a twin-engine piston Convair, because they could train you right in the squadron and not and in the airplane. So I came back with a really bad attitude. I really did. I had a bad attitude at first flying that T-29. I didn't want to take my patches off my uniforms until I was told by a colonel I had to. And
yeah, because you were a fighter pilot, single seat combat fighter
man,
pilot.
I was not one of those.
Yeah,
I didn't like it, but actually, when I look back on it, it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
What were they using it to train? C-130 guys? Like who
no,
was?
They're training navigators.
Oh, yes, I can see that. Yeah.
So like drone around, training navigators.
So you're just flying where they tell you to go.
Yeah, except they never know where they're going. I always tell them, you know where you've been. You don't know where you're going.
So you did that for the rest of your commitment?
Yeah.
Was it a 5-year commitment total?
It was about 5.5 years in total I had.
So you had
4 years after I got trained in a 105 was 4 years after that. So
wow. And then you said, I'm out altogether.
So it was about 5.5 years altogether.
Yeah. But at that point you're like, I'm done with the military. I'm going to go do other stuff.
Yep.
What was that like? What was that sense of, was it scary or just a sense of freedom?
It was, I don't know. It was kind of a sense of freedom. It was a little bit scary. The airlines were not really in a hiring mode at that time. And I kind of half-heartedly put in some applications for airlines, but really wasn't that enthused about airline flying either. I just don't want to, I don't want the Air Force controlling my life. I don't want a seniority number controlling my life either, and
Gonki's cheering. If he's watching this, he's cheering. I'm cheering too, but yeah, continue. This is awesome. This is
so I went to there was talk of the pipeline in Alaska and a bunch of flying jobs up in Alaska and stuff like that. So I ventured up to Alaska to see what's going on, and I talked to this guy who there was two C-82s sitting there. I don't know if you know what a C-82 is.
No,
it's a predecessor. It's a packet. It's a predecessor to the C-119.
Wow.
With the twin booms, and I went in and asked if he was hired any pilots, and he said no, he wasn't. And about a week later, he calls me up and says, "Did you find a job yet?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, I'm putting a DC-6 together. We just bought a DC-6. In fact, him and his buddy from the gold mines went down to Purdue University with a sack of gold and bought a DC-6.
Gold?
Yeah.
Wow. Legal tender, I guess, for all debts. Here's your gold.
And Purdue University was using it for basically a forerunner to satellite TV. They were doing educational TV. They had an antenna on the belly that they could lower down, and they orbited with that DC-6 to transmit educational TV.
Wow.
So they were getting rid of the airplane, so they bought it, and he thought it'd make a good bush airplane in Alaska. So he said, "I can't pay you, but I'm going to start ground school if you want to sit in on it." so I did, and next thing you know, we finished the ground school, but the DC-6 wasn't ready yet, so I ended up with 160 hours in the C-82. Just hauling freight around, and then got the DC-6 going. He said, "If you can make it through the summer without blowing an engine, we stand a chance."
That's awesome.
We did. So
you're flying in the bush with this?
Yeah.
How was that?
It was fun. It was fun. You know, you're not like around the lower 48 where you're led around by the nose by ATC. Up there, they clear you for approach 150 miles out, and away you go. You know.
Wild West. Is weather a big factor? I'm imagining.
Yeah, weather's a factor, but you learn that too. I mean, I used to the Aleutian chain is always so notorious for bad weather and all this stuff, but hell, you learn the winds, you learn what's going on out there, you learn which side is going to be good and which side is going to be bad, and you learn your way around.
Is that not too cold for a farm boy from the South?
No, I was from Iowa, man. We were cold too.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. That's awesome.
Actually, it was kind of fun to get some seasons again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, flying out there did you find that more challenging than flying F-105s or rewarding, or like
it was a different challenge. It was rewarding. I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, it was fun flying to those villages and supplying villages, bringing out stuff. You know, we were on our own. Hell, I used to carry a piece of wire with alligator clips on the end, so I could hot wire forklifts when I get someplace to load the
airplane. That is cool. So, what'd you end up? So from the DC-6. Is that the sandbar? Is that what you?
Oh, sandbar. Yeah. Well, one day they were flying the C-82 was in St. Mary's flying, shuttling from St. Mary's into the sandbar at Marshall, sandbar on the Yukon River, and landed in there with the DC-6 with a load to bring in more stuff. And the pilot of the C-82 says, "I think you could bring that DC-6 into that sandbar." He said, I think it might be good enough for that. So I rode along with him on the next trip in there and looked at it and said, "Yeah, I'll take 6 in there." So landed DC-6 on the sandbar.
Wow. It worked out. No issues.
Oh, yeah.
Got in and out. No problem.
No problem. I've landed on beaches and sandbars, sea ice, freshwater ice, all kinds of stuff.
That's got to be incredibly scenic. I mean, it's just beautiful up there, huh?
Yeah, it was fun. A lot of fun.
What'd you do? So what did you train? Because eventually you became the boss. So
well, yeah, I I was vice president of operations and maintenance, and running the operation. And the guy that started the company, he died from cancer, and his widow was running it. And she came to me one day and asked me what I thought we should hire for a president. What qualification we should hire. And I said, I'd looked at her and I said, until you're willing to back off and let a president run this company, that's a no-win job.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't think she liked that too much. But she hired a guy that came from the sawmill, didn't know anything about aviation, and we got crossways, and I left. I said that.
That's too bad.
Where'd you go? Built it from one DC-6 to 14 DC-6s.
So is that a 135 operation?
No, 121.
121. So what'd you end up doing after that?
Well, then I left, and then the vice president of ops and maintenance from Mark Air, 737 operation, called me up and he said, "Hey, Jerry, you still got a medical?" And I said, "Yeah." You want to fly Boeing? And he says, "I got enough pull around here. I can put you in the left seat." And I said, "Okay."
Wow. Straight to the left seat. That's awesome.
So then I went to ground school in Anchorage, and then went to Denver at United, where we did the simulators and stuff. And I had my first sim ride. I think got out of the sim at 4:00 in the morning, and my phone rang about 6:00 in the morning, and it was the VP of maintenance, ops and maintenance, says, "Jerry, get your ass to Anchorage." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "My director of flight ops just left, and I would need one. Get your ass to Anchorage." So I said, "Gene, when I finish my check ride, I'll be in Anchorage."
Yeah.
And he wasn't too happy about it. He said, "Hurry." So I got up there, and he said, "There's your office." And so I was director of flight ops for 737 operation for a while.
How'd you like the 737?
I know you don't like it. I like it.
That's true.
As far as I'm concerned, if it ain't Boeing, it ain't going.
Wait, which was it, like 300? Like, what was it earlier?
Yeah, well, we had 200 advanced, 300, 400s.
Okay.
400s were EFIS. Some of our 300s were EFIS. Some of our 300s were hardball.
Yeah.
So
wow. But it wasn't over then. You kept getting type ratings. What was after the 7.3?
7.3 after the 7.3 was a Herc.
Really?
Yeah. The Mark Air was going bankrupt. I knew it, and I left before they went bankrupt.
Smart.
And I decided that I hadn't enjoyed a summer in Alaska. I always worked too damn hard. So I decided this summer I'm going to enjoy a summer in Alaska, bought a motorcycle, and just started enjoying the summer. And then in the fall, maybe it was November, October, November, Linden called me and said they were thinking about putting together a Herc operation. They're thinking about buying a couple of Hercs. And these are the L382Gs, which are the stretched ones. And there's the civilian ones. They only made 118 civil Hercs.
Yeah.
So I hired me as a consultant to look into things. And after a couple of months, I became the first employee and started putting the 121 operation together.
Were you like landing it in austere environments? Like, what was the point for cargo or people? What were you?
All cargo. You can't haul people in a Herc.
Well,
The AFM says restricts you from hauling people.
I got you. Yeah.
But what kind of precipitated the whole thing is they were able to get an inside track on a contract for Alyeska pipeline oil spill spray after the Exxon Valdez and all that stuff. Started spraying for oil spill. So we had the contract, which was fun, flying 50 feet over the water, spraying
Yeah, in a Herc.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And then
it just started, I always said the first 6 months, I didn't think I was going to survive physically.
Really? Why?
The stress and everything to put that operation together was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then I figured about 2.5 years, wasn't sure the company was going to survive. I mean, I think I was in the hole 52 million at one point.
Jeez. What year? When are we talking, like year wise? When is this?
This was 98.
So you were still flying the DC-6s when you met the Russians?
Yeah. And that's why I got a 2.7. Well, I got a 2.7 type rating because of the GI Bill. But we were, when we were going to run we were awarded the Far Eastern route between Magadan and Anchorage. So we were looking at getting a 727 to do that. And I started first wet leasing and then turning that into a dry lease on 727 to start running those routes. But that never really materialized. It just all fell apart.
Wow. So how long did you do the C-130 thing or the Herc thing?
13 years. And
then you transitioned to something new or a different company?
Then I transitioned into retirement.
Oh, that was the sunset. Wow.
Yep. Yeah. Wow. I had to stop flying at 60 because the rule was 60.
Yeah.
And I was working with Senator Stevens, the senator from Alaska, on getting the law changed. And we worked and finally got the law changed, but I was 63 and a half when the law was changed. Wow. And the owner of the company said, Jerry, you got to go fly. And I said, hey, it's been too long. I got to go through initial now. And
timed out.
I said, I ain't got time for that. And I finally said, okay. He said, well, you got to do it. And I said, okay, I'll do it under one condition. You come with me. He had a 185 and a King Air, and he flew around all the time. So he's, pilot. And I said, you're going to come with me and you're going to get a Herc type rating. So we arranged it I said, you're going to quit work at 3:00 every afternoon and we're going to sit down and start ground school. And we worked our way through ground school and told him you had to take a week's vacation. And we went down to Tampa and to the simulator, got him his type rating. And I got requalified. So I flew for another 1.5 years, 465.
That's awesome. Yeah, you got you're like Maverick. You came back out of your Airstream and one more ride.
Well, you wouldn't believe the cussing I heard when we were trying to get the law changed. Man.
Oh yeah.
Airline pilots called me every name in the book.
Wait, so you were pivotal in that change? I mean, were you?
Yeah, I was working with Senator Stevens getting it done.
Wow. Yeah, because the big airline guys didn't like it because of the seniority, the 5 years and all that stuff.
Yeah, I said, I don't care. Retire at 60. I don't care when you retire. But then I'd have other airline pilots calling me up saying, God, thank you. He says, I needed another 5 years to pay off my alimony and pay off this, pay off all of that.
All those ex-wives,
Oh yeah.
You gotta
if your type ratings don't equal your ex-wives, there's something wrong.
Well, wait. How many type ratings do you have?
Yeah, no, I don't have it.
Well, no, but you listed that. That's actually a question. You listed them. You've got. I mean, it was like it took up a whole page.
The Convair 240, 340, 440 is pretty much all one, and the DC-6, DC-7 is pretty much one. And it's 727, of course, 737, and then the L382, which is the Herc.
Of everything you've flown, what has been your favorite?
Favorite airplane?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess there's no love like the love of your first fighter.
That is a great point. It's you always remember your first love. Was that your favorite mission, or did you have a favorite mission other than being a single seat fighter guy?
Well, that's the only mission I had.
No, I mean like of the other stuff, like
Oh, the
flying
other stuff.
130.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, there was a lot of stuff. I mean, I showed you a picture of St. George, with that little runway at St. George Island.
Yeah.
Um, that was a real rewarding thing because St. George at that time, this was in the mid '80s. St. George at the time was still being served by 2 or 3 boats a year.
Oh wow.
And
Wow.
they had like a Navajo that once or twice a week would come and deliver mail. But that was it. And so I went to St. Paul Island, which is it's a smaller island but a bigger population, and went over there with a grocery wholesale guy to see if it'd be viable to start a scheduled operation out there, once a week schedule. And looked things over, decided it probably was. And on the way back, I took the Navajo from St. Paul to Cold Bay to pick up Reeves YS-11 back to Anchorage. And I was just me and the pilot in the Navajo, and we were going to fly over St. George. And I said, I got about an hour to kill before I have to meet the airplane in Cold Bay. Any chance we'd stop in St. George? I'd just flown over it a lot, and I've never been there. I'd like to stop.
Yeah.
So he said, yeah, no problem. So we stopped. Well, he called ahead, and the mayor and the president, the native organization, everybody came out and met me and took me for a big tour of the town and all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's 160 people live there. So I was,
Yeah.
and anyhow, I got back out of the airport, and the mayor, he said, when are you going to land that big airplane here? And I said, take me for a ride. Take me for a ride on the runway. So I took a good inspection of the runway, came back, and I said, Max, one of these days I just may surprise you. And he said, now he said, you wouldn't even be that crazy.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we started the operation into St. Paul, and I think it was August, maybe July. Nice summer day, sun shining, no wind, which doesn't happen very often out there. I had kind of circled around and went over St. George to take a look at it, and I thought, I'll land. I landed. And
awesome.
the whole village came out. Man, it was really something. And in fact, they even asked me to stay another hour so the school kids could come out and see
How
the
cool.
airplane. And anyhow, I got back to Anchorage, and about a week later, I get a letter from the FAA, the violation letter, that the FAA guy says, how'd you do that? You can't even enter the charts. It was 3,000 feet long and 60 feet wide. So the lights on the edge of the runway were right under the outboard props. That's how narrow it was.
Ooh.
The gear is 30 feet, and there was the 60 foot wide. So,
Oh my God.
So that's pretty narrow. And but anyhow, I remembered there was the Alaska OAS Aircraft Services. Goose was out there by the hangar, up by the hangar. So I went over to their office and got a hold of the chief pilot, and I said, "Hey, your Goose was out there on such and such a day when I landed in St. George." He said, "Yeah, I was there. I was flying it." And I said, "What were they doing? Were they have some survey crew or something out there, or what was going on?" He says, "Yeah, they were surveying around out there." And he gave me the name of the outfit, the guy that was surveying out there. And I went over to him, found him, and went over, and I says, "Hey, I'm in a little trouble. This is what I need. I need a drawing of the runway. I'm not asking you to lie. I'm not asking you to whatever, but use as much of the road as you can and get me about 3,200 feet at the minimum." He gave me the most beautiful 3,400 foot runway drawing you could imagine. Took it to the FAA, and the FAA called me up, said, "We had a meeting down at the region, and we're going to go ahead and approve your scheduled operation into St. George." I hadn't even asked for it.
So, wow. So they took away the violation and gave you a scheduled operation.
Yeah.
2 for 1.
So we started operating and got in there, and I cornered the mayor, and I said, look, Max, I've done my part. My ass is hung way out there. You guys got to do your part. Make this runway bigger. And they did. The city donated the fuel and equipment, and the villagers worked and made the runway bigger.
Wow. And you stood up. Do you know who flies? Does anybody fly there today?
Not in any big airplanes now. I think there's some. I don't know what they used to fly Metro liners out there, and well, actually no, excuse me, they got a new runway. They got a whole new runway on the other side of the island. So yeah, there are some bigger airplanes running in there now.
Yeah. Wow. How cool is it to be a pioneer? I mean, you're doing some really cool
but
stuff.
What was really, really rewarding is when they took me uptown, their store was, I don't know, about an 8,000 square foot building. And it was all warehouse except for just a little tiny corner where they sold stuff in the store. And their loss rate was unbelievable because, 1 or 2 ships a year, that stuff spoiled, stuff got bad. It was just unbelievable. So once we started the schedule service, I said, look, you make this small little store your warehouse, and you make the rest of it your store. Keep your inventory on the shelves and keep it moving every week. And they cut their losses way down, their margins way down, and
that's awesome.
So that was a real rewarding part.
Yeah, you're changing lives.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Did you? Do you ever keep in touch with anybody from that time and stuff? I mean, do you ever check on them or anything?
I haven't since I retired. I haven't. I used to stay in touch with the mayor of St. Paul quite a bit. He used to come over to my house, and we used to cross country ski together and a bunch of stuff like that. But I haven't really kept track of him for quite a while.
So the real question,
I always remember Sarah Merkulieff at St. George. She says, Jerry, every time you land, I close my eyes. And I said, so do I, Sarah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So the real question is, when's the book coming out? This is all gold here. This is, if you're not writing a book, I think you're doing a disservice.
I've been told that I need to write a book. I just
yeah.
I always said if I wrote a book, it'd read like an airplane operating manual.
Yeah, well,
that's all I've ever written.
What? So I mean, I guess you're writing SOPs and on operations, op specs and stuff for all the different stuff you've done. Wow. So when you look back, if you had to give advice to some young kid watching this, I mean, what would you tell them, how to get in aviation or to get in the military or just in life in general?
Well, there are so many opportunities out there, and it's just not with the big airlines. We used to have a little at the University of Alaska. We had I always thought the mechanics were going to be in shortage before the pilots, and we used to have a kind of a career day out at the University of Alaska. They got an aviation department, and I used to go out there and show them, look what you can be worldwide traveler as a mechanic and a flight engineer and a Herc, and used to try to give them ideas for different opportunities. Yeah, because when we started the Herc operation, we struggled at first, and then we once we got a year in of operation, then we could apply for craft and get the CARB to inspect us and get in with AMC. And about that time is when the wars were kicking off in Afghanistan and Iraq first. So we ended up with Southern Air Transport had a Herc, and they had a contract out of Yokota, and they went bankrupt, and the World Airways was the team leader, so they had a backfill that lift. So they called me if we could do it. And we had just passed all our inspections for the military. And within 3 days, or he sent a guy over and took over the apartments that Southern Air had over. In 3 days, we had a Herc over there flying missions.
Wow.
So we had one in the Yukon. That really got us going. And then we had one or two over in Europe. We were flying all over the place in Europe with the war stuff. And then we ended up with one in McGuire flying Thule, Greenland.
Jeez. All over the world here.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Jerry, we're going to get some questions from the audience here.
Okay.
If you don't mind, because they have been hanging on every word so far. This isn't a question, but they just Bulldog says, "Thanks for your story, Jerry. When thunder rolled is a good compliment to that."
Yeah.
But a C-130 flight engineer, Crazy Pete, says, "How does the Ruskian Herkski compare to the real deal?"
It's quite an airplane. It's really, really heavy on the controls. I mean, you got to have great big thighs. Those rudder pedals were really, really hard to. you had 2 engine work with that. You were shaking. Your old legs were shaking.
Where is it, hydraulic assisted or like just straight up?
I don't even know. I didn't get any systems work. I just flew the airplane.
They just put you in the left seat and said, "Good luck, comrade.
Yeah.
It's good. Yes, do this. You will be fine. It's fine."
It was kind of funny. You see, if you're sitting way up, there's a tunnel sits between you and the co-pilot. The flight engineer swings his seat. He's hanging in midair over that tunnel between you two of you. It's just.
That's awesome.
I guess one of the things on the Russian airplane that was interesting, I was on an IL-76 and they were talking about the airplane was only 6 months old and stuff. And I looked over at the radio operator and he was sending messages from Cold Key.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. Max Afterburner says, "Hi, Jerry. Did you have any desire to fly the F-105G Wild Weasel mission with a backseater if that was the option available during your tour?"
When I was there, we were using the Fs. The Gs hadn't come into existence yet. The Gs were modified Fs, and the bubble on the side of the fuselage is where all the ECM gear was, the jamming gear was. Otherwise, you had to carry the jamming gear on one of the wing pylons. The F model couldn't carry the standard arm, the big missile. It could only carry the Shrike. So when the G came along, then they carried the standard arm.
I got you.
So I didn't get an opportunity to fly the G. I never really had any desire to fly the F. I kind of liked being by myself.
Man after my own heart. Kate says, "Jerry, were you involved in the Miss Missoula?"
Miss Missoula?
Yeah.
Well, it's I don't know what that is.
I don't either.
The New Jersey was offshore when I was over there.
Yeah,
offshore of North Vietnam.
I'll have to
So
brush
I don't
up
know
on that.
what you're talking about.
We'll get Kate to explain it, and then we'll come back. Jerry, do you still own or fly a private plane, and what kind of tractor is your Thud?
No, I don't own an airplane anymore. The last airplane. Let's see. Private airplanes. I've had 3. I owned a Swift, and rebuilt a Cessna 170, and then and the last one I had was a Twin Comanche, and I figured I'd use the Twin Comanche down the lower 48 to do a lot of flying around. But some guy had cash and wanted my airplane, so I took the cash.
Nice.
And what kind of tractor is your Thud? I don't know. I like the farmals. I like the big reds.
Yeah. Did they take gold for your plane? Would you have taken gold if somebody
Sure,
had given you?
Sure, I would have.
That's
In
such
fact,
an awesome.
there's a gold mine I used to go to quite a bit. In fact, I would sometimes plan my RONs to RON at the gold mine in Alaska, and it was just fun. I loved it.
That's awesome. Ben says the movie you're going to consult and co-write, would it be more Vietnam or Alaska? And did you fly a goose?
I flew in a goose. I never did. Well, yeah, I did fly goose. That's right. I didn't get I've got a float rating, but I didn't get a twin engine float rating. I flew in a goose one day, but didn't get a rating in it. There's been a lot of movies and a lot of books and stuff on NAM. I'd probably be more Alaska, like flying a cow around in an airplane and flying stuff around.
Yeah,
that's the kind of stuff I'd talk about.
What kind of what? No, now you have to talk about the cow. Tell me about this cow.
Well, we had the school kids in Bethel, Alaska, had never seen a cow, of course. So the University of Alaska donated a cow to go out to Bethel so the kids could have a cow for a week.
Oh, wow.
And we flew it out there in a DC-6. Of course, we wouldn't fly out there without a load of freight. So I got a bunch of straw bales and got the cow in the back of the airplane, tied its halter to the ring in the wall, and off we went.
Does it just stand there the whole time?
And we got to Bethel, and it's a long story on how we got it offloaded. It was not a whole lot of fun. I'm lucky I didn't get killed getting that cow off the airplane. But once I got it off the airplane, the old cow's tits are dripping milk, and so I asked somebody if they had a bucket, and they got a bucket, and I'm milking the cow out there on the airport, and with the school kids just loving it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that goes in the book. If you're writing it, you need to put that in there. And a question for Jerry. My dad always wondered how his life would have been different if he had stayed in the military. Do you wonder? Do you have any regrets? Did it work out?
I never did until, well, yeah, I guess I don't really have any regrets. I mean, I wondered, I've got a good friend of mine that retired as a 4-star, and we were pups together in 105s, and we were talking one evening, and he just said, "You took a different path than I did, just nothing wrong with the path you took. I just took a different path."
Yeah, no, and, that's valid. I love the fact that you made a decision and said, "This isn't for me." That's a man of integrity right there. That's the cool part. This is from an 8-year-old. Hi, sir. Alec here. I'm 8 years old. Did you ever count bullet holes in your plane and go, "Man, how I survive"? And then also he asked, how many bombs would you carry? So 2 questions, I guess.
Well, I don't know if I didn't count them all, because sometimes I heard later after I landed that they found a bullet hole in the airplane or something. So I didn't really count them. I did go, yeah. Sometimes I wondered how I survived. My airplane did get shot down. The airplane with my name on it.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't flying it.
Yeah.
And how many bombs you carried? Well, it depended on the mission. We carried a typical load was 2 450-gallon fuel tanks inboard on the wings, and outboard we'd have, depending on where we're going. If we're going up north, you'd have a jamming pod on one side and a sidewinder on the other side. If you're going someplace else, you may have a CBU or another hard bomb on the outboards. And the center line, we carry usually 6 750 pounders. And see, the 105 had a bomb bay also. Jeez. That's where all the nuclear stuff was. We carried a 390-gallon fuel tank in there.
Wow. Yeah, well, you got a lot of gas.
Yeah.
A lot of fuel.
Need a lot of gas.
Yeah. Garrett said... Yeah,
but we carry 3,000. The biggest bombs we carry are 3,000 pounders. We carry a 3,000 pounder on the inboards, on each inboard, and then we'd have a 650-gallon centerline fuel tank external.
Jeez. Garrett would like to know, was flying the Soviet aircraft as bad as he imagines?
Yeah. When I went back to Anchorage from Magadan, I was flying on a Russian AN-24. And when I went over there, we were talking about flying DC-6s, and I wasn't sure about their avgas. So I talked to Chevron, and they were just as curious about their avgas as I was. So they gave me 2-gallon sample cans, take over and see if I could get some gas out of them, which I did. And when it was time to go back to Anchorage, I asked the Russians, I says, what do I do with this gas? They just pointed under the seat. So I rode back with two gallons of gas underneath my seat. And then when we went from Magadan to Anadjir, and Anadjir we were on the ground for a while because we had some Russians. There was a rotary exchange going on. And there was a problem with one of the Russians' paperwork, so we were on the ground quite a while, and it was really cold. And we got airborne. I don't remember, radio operator, somebody came back and asked me if I was cold, and I said, no, I'm fine. And then I had my Soviet pilot wings on. And he says, pilot? I says, yeah. And he's, come on. So I went up to the cockpit, and they started poking fun of my pilot wings. So I pulled my Soviet license out and handed it to the captain. And God, he looked at that, passed it around, and somebody said something about all Soviet crew. And I said, yeah, all Soviet crew. And the captain kicked the co-pilot out of the right seat, put me in the right seat, and flew it from there to Providencia, approach landing and everything.
Wow.
And what was really funny, when I got in the seat, the captain just went like this, go this way. So I'm flying. He said, "Nyet, nyet." Then I figured it was a fixed card compass. Once I got that figured out, I was
okay. Yeah. All right. It's awesome.
Interesting.
Diane says, thanks for the interview. If you could fly anything now, what would it be?
Ooh. I don't know. There's flying a 185 on floats in Alaska is probably the most fun of anything.
Yeah.
I love that. I just love that.
Yeah. Is there any fighter you'd be like, hey, I'd love to go fly this right now?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't mind
any of them.
Flying any one of them. Yeah. F-22, F-35, F-16. Yeah, that'd be fun. I mean,
yeah.
I'm probably too old though, man. I just sold my Harley. I figured I'm getting too old to drive my Harley. I'm probably too old for.
I meant to ask you about that. What was the summer of motorcycle love? What did you end up flying or driving? What kind of motorcycle? Was it a Harley?
Yeah. I've had a Harley all the way till just this summer.
Wow. Paul says, how many tankers would you refuel for a RP6 mission?
We normally, we took off and rejoined, flew out to the tanker route, and lead would go hook up right away, and you cycle through. Lead would get off the radio, get target information and everything. We tell the tanker where we wanted to be dropped off if he could, and what time he wanted to drop us off. And then about 4 or 5 minutes before drop off, we'd cycle through real quick, top off, and then go in. And coming back out, we'd always refuel coming back out again too. So there was at least 3 hookups.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds about right. Single engine jet, you need the gas. Kate says, Jerry, you're so modest, but you're a legend in Alaska. I feel so honored to be watching and listening to you live. That's awesome.
Well, I don't deserve that.
Oh, of course you do. John says, thank you for your service. What was your fastest indicated speed in the F-105? And is that your Thunder Chief helmet behind you?
It's not. It's not. The damn Air Force made me turn in my helmet.
Really?
Yeah, I was not happy about that.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a guy out at the museum, and he says, well, I got one for you, Jerry. So he got me a helmet and gave me that one. It's the same helmet. It's just a different visor than what we had.
Yeah. Michael says Chuck Yeager flew the F-20 in his old age at the time, and I heard once that the G's that the aircraft took were extreme. Oh, so Chuck Yeager was out there yanking and banking. Good for him. That's awesome. Well, Jerry, I appreciate your time. I don't want to keep you too long. Your story is amazing. I knew that as soon as we emailed. Thanks for the words of wisdom. Thanks for telling your story. Please write that book.
Yeah, I'll give it a try. Hopefully it doesn't operate. Oh, I had one thing I was you heard this definition of a fighter pilot before, I'm sure. A fighter pilot is noted for his intelligence, independence, integrity, courage, and patriotism. Fighter pilot is a state of mind, not a job title. Therefore, not all people who fly fighters are fighter pilots, and nor do all fighter pilots fly fighters.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And as Gonky likes to remind me, once you're a fighter pilot, you're always a fighter pilot.
Yeah, I can believe that. The old juices get flowing, you get something going there, the old juices start flowing again.
Yeah. That's awesome. Jerry, we appreciate everything.
Hey, thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you tomorrow night.